My name is LEIGH Wright. I'm an assistant professor at Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky. We're about an hour 15 north and west of Austin Peay, so it's nice to see a hometown person down here. I'm here to talk to you all about what I'm doing. I had this really harebrained idea last semester as I was looking at news literacy and media literacy. Of course, the definitions are displayed there, but I was thinking of this whole thing because we started doing a Timeline.JS project in my advanced news writing class, which is my sophomore level students. And I had them looking at the Paris attacks or the Syrian refugee issue last semester. And as they started digging back in and using their critical thinking skills, they realized that some of these issues had been going on for a period of time, and several of them were quite surprised the situation in Syria had been so serious for so long. And so it got me thinking about, combining news media and media literacy together, because we're making some media here. So again, he mentioned earlier about my news literacy. These stats were pretty alarming to me. I often give the news quiz in the class, and of course I don't score very well. So why did I choose Timeline.JS? Well, one of my alumni had recommended it to me. I think that journalists need to be able to know the history and background of what they're going to cover, and of course the software is free. How many of y'all teach somewhere that has budget cuts coming? Yep. And finally, the back end plugs into a Google spreadsheet, which kind of demystifies spreadsheets, and my students are often terrified of it, so if they see there's an application for it, they're a little bit easier to engage with. So you can see the basics of Timeline.JS. It's pretty easy. The instructions are straight from their website. You have to download the template, publish to the web, put the URL in, hit a button, and it gives you an embed code. Pretty easy. So I chose to do this because I really like for my students to be able to have some type of different approach to curating current events. They like to be creative, and it encourages students to really get in and kind of research and dig and use that critical thinking. So here's my assignment. I made them select some type of subject that had legs. You can see some of my examples there. The first timeline I made them do, they had to offer a little bit of brief history, about 3 to 4 slides, to sort of give us the background and enough historical context so we knew what was going on. Then they're going to be following this subject throughout the semester. And they're going to turn in the Timeline.JS to me every other week. The reason I didn't do it every week is because, well, that's a lot of grading for me, number one. And two, sometimes, as we know, events take a little while to develop. At the end of the semester, I'm making them present their timeline to the class. So they have to get up and talk about it and talk about the historical, political, societal, and cultural changes that they've seen. So to start out, I did something kind of fun. We had a setup, and I did a test run where they researched Star Wars. They could choose whichever Star Wars set of movies, whether it was the good ones from the 70s and 80s that I grew up with, the ones from modern day that my child grew up with that I always fall asleep trying to watch, or the new ones coming out. Some also chose to use the book. And so we did a test run in class, and then they had to select a topic. And so some of the topics include Boko Haram. They're looking at the heroin epidemic that we're facing right now in Kentucky. But I wanted them to choose something they had some engagement with and some interest in. And of course, I gave them some feedback and suggestions. I had one who chose to do something about Sarah Palin. Oh, she's back. Well, she's been back. Now maybe she's gone for a while. So he's changed his topic to looking at Justice Scalia's death and the issues that'll be surrounding trying to get a new Supreme Court justice in. So let me show y'all a couple of examples. We've only done this a couple of times so far because we just started about a month ago. And one of my students is a student who has a child in school, and so she's very curious about the Every Student Succeeds Act. So she's been looking back at what's been leading up to the Every Student Succeeds Act, and now she's going to start looking forward as this legislation starts to come to the forefront. Of course, I have many students who are wanting to do information. They're wanting to do their timelines about the caucuses or the primaries, the debates. A lot of them are following the presidential race. I do have one student who researched the background of Bernie Sanders, and it's a very interesting timeline right now because he's traced Bernie Sanders' biographical history, and it's very educational for the other students to look at that and see, hey, this is who this guy is. We've been hearing about Feel the Burn, so now who is this Bernie Sanders guy? But it's not been without its challenges. Some of the challenges that we've faced have been technical issues, of course. This is a pretty easy and intuitive piece of software to use. And to start it, I introduced a video, let them look at the video, then we went through it, but we still had some trouble. The biggest trouble that they've had is trying to figure out how to embed photos. And I think that this has been an issue because oftentimes they don't think to go and get that URL for the photo, and they're just plucking the photo offline, just hitting the link at the top and pasting it in. They also forget to go to publish to the web in Google Docs. And that would cause them a lot of trouble, so they would forget to put it into the generator. And of course, I did have one student here who's looking at the history of pay-to-play, like sports players who are paid. He forgot to put in the dates, like the starting to end date. So I'm working with these students to get this through and see what they can do with this. So what we've learned so far, the creation has really led to a lot of engagement. My students are excited. They're like, oh, we get to create something today. I'm like, yes, you get to create something. They love being able to create this little timeline. I asked them what they were learning, and they were like, I really learned a lot about the history of whatever topic it is that I'm looking at this semester. And so the other thing is, we've also learned, not right now, don't be afraid to fail. This is really our first attempt in learning. And so while it's a new project, I'm hoping that eventually it'll pay off so that my students are a little bit more engaged in current events. They'll know what's news besides keeping up with the Kardashians, the Jenners, Bieber, or any celebrity, but they might actually be might be able to talk a little bit more intelligently about issues that are happening overseas, or domestic issues, such as the Every Student Succeeds Act. So if y'all have questions or anything, I'm happy to share rubrics, assignments. I'll let y'all know how it goes at the end of the semester.